6th and 7th graders in Jane Vossler's class are attempting to improve human relations in their school by taking on the perennial human issues of prejudice and intolerance. As Jane puts it, combined with fear, greed, and anger, prejudice has played a central role in all sorts of social problems throughout history. Using intolerance as the focus for a unit is a perfect vehicle for riveting kids' attention on an important social studies concept.
I think the main goals of social studies should be to prepare kids to be active participants in society and in a democracy. So I think they should, for example, not just that they go and vote when it's time to vote, but that they really understand the issues involved in voting, and so they know history so that they can understand what's going on today, that they're compassionate members of society. We started out by watching a video from Teaching Tolerance. They produced some really good materials, and they had a video of that was an overview of history and the different groups that were treated intolerantly.
When we studied the history of intolerance in America, we found, like I studied Jewish intolerance, and like Leo Frank when he got hung because he was a suspected murderer, and big things like that, and small things like teasing. But those small things can have an influence on big things in the future.
Each chose a group to study and did research on and wrote a report, sort of the traditional kind of social studies stuff. But they were really into it. They kept coming up to me and saying, look at this, look what happened to these people. And somehow they really personalized it.
Well, I read the book 12 Days in August, and that is about a boy being teased because, people were calling him gay. It was really interesting because I never thought of calling somebody gay as like intolerance, because I've never really been faced with that. And it just kind of taught me that it was intolerance, and it was really cruel.
If you're picked on every day, it's going to be a lot harder for you in school than if you're not picked on. I think that if people are intolerant towards you, it really makes life difficult.
I'd like them to be able to feel like, through social studies, that they can make a difference, whether it's on a local level or even on a bigger level.
We decided to research what people think the cause of intolerance is.
Intolerance towards gays, and that's not only towards just insulting or gays themselves, but using the term gay as a bad thing. Intolerance towards younger, like 8th graders towards 6th graders. Appearance, physical, anything physical, any physical disabilities, learning disabilities, people that are considered too smart or just too smart, and so some people are intolerant towards them. Emotional sort of disorders, nationality, race and religion. We studied intolerance like some people did Native Americans, other Japanese, and we studied a particular part of American intolerance. And so with that knowledge, I guess I'm pretty sure that it did help us think of questions for the actual survey.
We had to try to word the questions in a way that kind of tricked the person who was answering, so that we didn't just come out and ask, are you really intolerant? We would say, have you witnessed intolerance? Do you know people who are intolerant? Things like that, so that we might get at other people who they might not say it, but their friends would.
Yeah, because we've rephrased the question over and over and over again just to get it the way that we wanted to sound, so it didn't seem like we were accusing the people or anything, or so that they got the question.
We needed to give them to some other people to test them and to see if they were confusing or if they just weren't good to ask.
We went to every teacher and asked for times that we could give the survey.
Kids went and did it themselves because they didn't want teachers to administer it and sort of bias people in any way, so they went in and everybody had a similar script that they used so that to try to make it fair, and we got those all done in a day.
We only kept the ones that looked like the person had taken their time and actually meant what they said.
Then each group decided on a topic, a part of the survey that they wanted to really investigate. So we divided it up so everyone had a different aspect to look at. We were lucky to have Microsoft Access and Microsoft Excel, because without those tools, those technological tools, we never could have done it. We just had, 400 surveys, just 5-page survey. The amount of data would have been overwhelming for anybody, even the whole class, to try to tally it by hand. But with kids working in teams of 2, one reading the answers and one entering the data, we were able to do it in less than 2 days. What we did was, Mr. Downs, the technology person, he trained he trained 10 kids, and then they became the trainers for their group, and they trained them on how to enter the data. Also told students that they all had to learn how to enter the data and how to make a query and how to then use Excel to make a graph of their results. And if I hadn't told them that there was going to be a test on that, some people who are comfortable with the computer would have just done it, and the others would have just sat back. But because every day I reminded them, you're going to need to know how to do this. You make sure that your trainer teaches you how to do this. And almost everyone has now has gone to the computer by themselves and produced a graph and a query of their own.
Automatically, when you go to make a graph in Excel, it goes only up to the percentage on the bar graph that it needs to, and so most of ours went to 70 or 80%. So we had to, and it wasn't giving us an accurate picture because we went to the Axis and changed it to 100%, and it made it look different.
A lot of groups encountered the fact that you can manipulate the data, and they were manipulating it without realizing they were manipulating it.
One day, I look in a magazine and I see statistics about something, and I could recognize something that they should have changed or made it into a different sort of graph.
It kind of taught us how some graphs can be misleading, and now I think if I look at graphs, I want to make sure that it's really trying to tell us what it's trying to tell us and not trying to mislead us somewhere else.
Good citizens need to know how to ask questions and challenge information that other people are producing. And, someone makes a statement, and in a town meeting, they need to be able to stand up and say, well, where are you getting that information? How can you back that information up?
You're going to take a careful, thoughtful look at each of the graphs, and you're going to put some feedback on your sticky note.
They're not giving you any information at all other than just a circle, and you can't figure out anything. If they show the values, then they should show values. So go to when you go to Chart Wizard, the third step or something.
And maybe a different graph, so because then you can if you did it like this, you can put them next.
You don't need that then, because this is the percentage of this is the number. Yeah.
We'll make that clear because
it says percentage, but this one's a lot smaller.
Yeah. Just don't forget the where else can you go with this part. It's easy to sort of analyze the graph, but that's the part that really takes looking at the survey.
If you could do like I don't know how, but you might be able to compare these for people who say they would to people who actually have.
It was really exciting to see them actually being social scientists and doing real research. And I would remind them, when they started to get a little discouraged that this was taking so long, I would remind them that, don't forget, what you're finding out here is stuff that no one else in this school knows. They may guess, just like we had our guesses before we began, but no one else knows this. And they would go, oh yeah, that's right. And that would kind of motivate them to keep working.
It kind of sucked you in after a while because it was so interesting going out and finding all this information.
It wasn't like put in some book and you had to go sit down and read it. You had to actually go out and find it for yourself, and it kind of, I don't know, it's just better to do it that way. I think you learn more. And what we found is that people believe that wanting to be popular is the most likely cause of intolerance. For some reason, some people think that if they want to be popular, they have to put other people down, because if they make fun of kids who have a different appearance or act differently, then maybe people will think that they're more cool. If a really popular person is making fun of someone, tons of kids will start doing the same thing.
When we split up the data, we had the physical harassment and the verbal harassment. The males were more afraid of being physically harassed than the girls were.
Basically 60% of the school has witnessed intolerance towards gays. People don't see as calling something gay as intolerant, and so it's like, again, part of a habit. Although if somebody's racist, they see that as being very intolerant, so they don't do it.
It's become such a part of normal life that it's just nobody really realizes it's intolerance anymore.
Middle school is an age where kids have a very strong sense of what's just and fair, and this does tap into that.
I think that would be an easy thing to do.
I'm still searching for a way to assess the amount of kind of critical thinking that they did on this. Maybe I'll require each person to analyze someone else's findings, and that would be a reflection of how well they can really think about it. I know they can do the technological piece, but the thinking piece is what's really important. There's a ton of data there, but what stands out? What conclusions would they draw on the whole report? What did they learn from this, and what recommendations would they make to make things better?
The first 3 most popular ones were standing up, reporting intolerance, and adults enforcing stricter rules on intolerance.
One of the graphs that we got, we had how many students would be willing to make a difference in the amount of intolerance in EMS. And what I thought was interesting was half of the people said yes, but then 29% said that they would like to, but they're not sure if they would be willing to take the risk. So, like, if we could just convince those people to change it to yes, it'd almost be 3/4 of the school that said yes.
We could make some sort of school rule that could help us try to decrease the amount of verbal harassment.
Well, we were talking about doing in the advisory groups about having them talk about all these subjects and queries that we've made. We thought that maybe if we showed them how bad it was, it could change.
I'm hoping that this project is going to really make a difference in their lives, and in that they're going to be able to catch themselves being intolerant, that they're going to be able to challenge other people that they see being intolerant.
I think it already has had a bit of an impact on how people think about intolerance, because because they took the survey and now they realize it more when somebody's being intolerant, and they realize, oh, I said I would on the survey, so maybe I should.
Changes me because it tells me that I'm actually being intolerant without even thinking that I am to other people.
When we studied historical intolerance, I think when we did that and the survey together, I think it probably changed a lot of us.
And as Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can make a difference in the world, or something to that effect. And that's a poster I have on my wall that a lot of kids have commented on, and we've talked about it, and I gave each kid a bookmark with those words on it, and I notice now they're all using it in their literature books. But that's a really powerful statement for kids, I think, and I'm hoping this project is going to show them that they really can make a difference.
Jane Vossler students have learned to feel passionately about the common good and are struggling with how to stand up for what they know is right. They are practicing the thinking and skills most needed by democratic citizens: critical evaluation of their own surroundings, followed by action. These students put their newfound knowledge to work by making their school community a better place. A place where students and adults are not afraid to stand up for their convictions. A place free of harassment, where all can experiment and learn in a safe and caring atmosphere.